Panasonic Leica 12-60mm f2.8-4 lens is my favorite compact size all-around zoom lens. It's a very capable lens function-wise with top-notch build quality and beautiful aesthetic design. Truly a treat to look at as well as to use. What more can you ask from a lens? The lens is made of metal, features a nice and smooth zoom ring, a thinner focus ring, an AF/MF toggle switch, and image stabilization switch with a plastic lens hood. Image quality-wise, I am thoroughly impressed by its sharpness at wide angle. Even at widest aperture f2.8 at 12mm, it is insanely sharp. In fact, probably the sharpest lens I've ever seen. However, my copy loses sharpness from 40mm to 60mm range at widest aperture. It captures much less detail and whole image just looks soft. You can solve it by stopping down the aperture and get a very sharp image still, as you can see in these sample images, but it really should be sharp wide open. I asked around on the internet as well as examined other reviews of this lens. I believe it's just my copy of the lens that has this issue, so if you are picking up a used copy like mine, be sure to check the tele-end sharpness before you buy. When talking about this lens, you have to talk about its exceptional zoom range. It is a full-frame equivalent 24 to 120mm. Really impressive for a lens of such a tiny size. In fact, it weighs only 320 grams, fits perfectly on both GH5 and smaller cameras like GX85. At 12mm, you have a nice wide angle that allows you to take nice landscape photography and take pictures in tight environments such as urban streets. Also, it is very pleasant focal length for vlogging. At 60mm, you get really nice telephoto focal length to shoot your subject from a distance. It's extremely versatile. If you're traveling light, this is the lens to take with you. Speaking of the focal range, we have to talk about the bokeh and the f-stops because they are so closely related. At 12mm, the maximum aperture is f2.8. It drops as soon as you zoom in. At 50mm, it is f3.0, 18mm f3.2, 24mm f3.5, 32mm f3.8, 52mm f4.0. I'll list the f-stop with the focal length down in the comment section. So at 12mm f2.8, you actually get pretty nice bokeh for selfie. It's not impressive amount of background blur, especially if you come from full frame, but it is very pleasant looking. Generally, this lens cannot produce very shallow depth of field. It's not a bokeh lens. However, macro four thirds lenses usually have a very short minimum focusing distance. This one focuses at just 20cm at 12mm and 24cm at tele end of the range. That is crazy close to your subject. Oftentimes, I have to take off the lens hood in order to get to the minimum focusing distance. Anyway, this short focusing distance allows you to really throw everything in the background out of focus easily. So when I say it's not a great bokeh lens, I meant it does not generate great bokeh in your standard distance shoot. But when you get up close to the subject, it is just wow. At 60mm f4, the compression really separates the subject from the rest of the scenery really well. It's simply gorgeous looking. In this set of example, the Leica 12-60mm at 60mm f4 creates a better looking bokeh than the Leica 10-25mm at 25mm f1.7. So yeah, you can shoot portrait with this lens, but unless you are close enough to your subject, you won't be getting much bokeh. But the mild background separation gives you a good sense of the surrounding, thus it's pretty nice for environmental portrait. That's the silver lining. Besides bokeh, I think the color also is wonderful. Panasonic GH5 already has a great color straight out of camera. Many times I just shoot natural profile with no grading and it looks just naturally beautiful. Now let's talk about the painful part, low light. It really does not shine much in low light situation. The most difficulty I've had is shooting people indoors at night. People move all the time, so it is difficult to slow the shutter speed to get cleaner images. So I always end up have to use high ISO and image just look lack of detail. Not a fan of it. But if you're shooting still subject, it's no issue. Also, if you shoot 4K video in low light, I think the image quality is totally passable. I would not hesitate to shoot casual 4K video with this lens, but for photos, I'd pick something else with a brighter aperture. I have to compare it to the Lumix 12-60mm f3.5 to 5.6 kit lens because they're almost the same lens but actually quite different. The Leica version is parfocal. You can zoom in and out, and focus remains the same, so it is very convenient for video making. Also, I do feel like the stabilization works better on the Leica than Lumix kit lens. At the beginning of a clip, Lumix lens usually generates an uncomfortable jitter, that is, the lens and camera trying to sync together to achieve dual IS. You can eliminate it by shooting video in movie mode, which enables dual IS full-time, so it doesn't do the jittering at the beginning of a clip. But on the Leica version, it just works a little bit better. Another issue is that the Lumix lens tends to hunt more in autofocus. So if I want to get nice landscape video clip, I usually use manual focus. Now with Leica lens, it's never been an issue. I just shoot in autofocus all the time. By the way, the manual focus ring is still fly-by-wire, which I don't like. The amount of focus travel varies, depends on how fast or slow you turn the focus ring, which make it very difficult to repeat the same focusing motion in video. In photo, it's totally fine. You can rotate it back and forth to get optimal focus very quickly, but I don't enjoy using it in video. The Leica 10-25mm f1.7 is much better in this regard. Now there's still an issue with the autofocus of this lens, or rather with the GH5 contrast detection focus system. I find that when you are shooting scenes with trees and skies in the background at the same time, when the focus shifts back and forth rapidly to confirm the focus, it creates a very unpleasant flashing in the tree branches that is very distracting and very ugly. So pay attention if you're shooting serious project, better just to use manual focus. In the end, let's talk about not the lens itself, but rather the price. It costs about 900 euros new. It is insane. It is. I mean, I love this lens, really. It's the best lens I've tried before getting the Leica 10-25mm f1.7. But the price tag is just not justified. If I get to decide, I would make the price for a brand new copy about 700 euro. That reflects the value much better. Still a premium product, but it is not ridiculously expensive considering the variable aperture. I bought it used for only 500 euros, so it came with the sharpness issue at telephoto end, but it's worth it still. I think 500 euros is a pretty nice price range for a used copy. It's kind of hard to find it below 500 at the moment. Alright, here's my conclusion. A list of pros and cons for you to decide whether or not it's a good buy for you. Pros: 1. Great zoom range, extremely versatile. 2. Exceptional build quality and aesthetic design. 3. Great close focusing capability, almost macro capability, which creates beautiful bokeh. 4. Decent level of bokeh for Micro Four Thirds standard. 5. Parfocal. 6. The switches on the lens offer great control during a shoot, very practical and functional. 7. Sharp, crazy sharp, except that in my case, it is soft at telephoto range. Pretty sure it's just my individual case though. 8. Compact size, discreet, lightweight, matches the GX85 very well. And the cons: 1. Variable aperture f2.8 to f4. At f4, it is a little bit uninspiring. 2. The lack of bokeh if you are a bit far from the subject, aka standard shooting distance. 3. Fly-by-wire manual focus system is not quite that great experience for video. 4. Too expensive for what it offers. 5. Struggles in low-light situations, depending on what you shoot. So that is my full review of this lens. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more camera and lens reviews, please subscribe.